All right, welcome back to another episode of Generation to Generation, Bridging the Gap with Rex.
And Eva, and we're so excited to have you back here with us. It's been a minute. We've been busy. Life got crazy, as I'm sure it did for everybody else. And we're just excited to get back into the routine of things.
We are, and we have some updates for folks. I don't know how many updates we're going to do, but we've definitely had some life changes since the last time we have been able to do an episode. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is happening with Eva?
Well, I moved into college. That's been so much fun. It's my first time back in a brick and mortar school building since middle school. That's been like crazy. It's been the first time all of like in a while that I've just been surrounded by like people my own age every day. I thought I was an extrovert until I came here, and sometimes I just have to go back and sit in my room and take a nap. But it's been amazing. My classes are amazing. I've got 5 classes this semester. 2 of them are honors, 2 of them are generals, and 1 of them is major specific. And it's been so fun. I think I have mentioned it on here before, but a lot of my classmates said college is often easier than our high school. And so far I'm finding that to be the case, not in like a haughty way. It's just like it prepared me very well for time management, getting it on top of my assignments, like doing the reading in our honors program. We just have a lot of reading every other night. And I'm used to that with the way my high school was run. And so I've been able to live in the moment, be silly sometimes. I think one of my favorite things to do with my friends is go to Whataburger at 11-ish or later. Because they start serving breakfast at 11 p.m. And so we'll go out, like the group of us in 2 cars, and get honey buttered chicken biscuits and milkshakes and stay out until way too late. And the restaurant knows us, and it's a lot of fun. I really just am enjoying getting to be around people, getting to know my teachers. Do miss cooking all the time. The caf food is good. It's not a home cooked meal good, but I think being away from you and mama, I think y'all raised me to be independent enough that it really hasn't been that hard. I don't think any tears have been shed yet, unless mom is lying to me, but I don't think any tears have been shed yet. I think I miss y'all most at night. I miss you in the morning, because every morning when I was at home, and you were home, I would get a good morning sunshine when I finally came out of my room, or text, and I haven't gotten that in a minute. And so that's been a little wild. And then mama, I miss her most at night when it's like quiet in my room and it's just me. Because I'm used to like sitting up in the loft and her sitting down in the living room, and we could be watching our own shows, and then all of a sudden someone sends a reel and you just hear each other both dying laughing. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm all moved in. Small groups have started back up, so I'm back into like that kind of routine of things. But it's just been a lot of fun getting plugged in on campus, getting to know people, making friends, falling in love with the classics again. I think that some of the books that I had read in high school that I didn't like was just because I don't think I was taught them in a way that made them enjoyable. But knowing the general idea of the story, going back and rereading them now in college, it's just been so enjoyable to get to go back into it and not being so caught up in what the end plot of the story is, but just focusing on like the virtues of the characters, and things like that. And so I feel like I've just grown in my confidence as a student, which is something that I've struggled with just purely based off the fact that some of the questions I've asked in class have ended up on the study guides. And I'm like, well, that's great. And so all of those years of dealing with feeling like I was academically inferior, God's quickly like, hey, actually, you can do this. I believe in you, kind of things. Like, for instance, today we just started reading Hesiod's Works and Days. It's Greek, but it's kind of about him talking to his brother, kind of prodigal son style. And as soon as there's this running joke that I just talk a lot in class, which I mean is so real. And I had joked and told our professor that I would not talk as much once we got out of the Iliad. And then as I rose my hand today and I said, sorry, I lied. I've got a lot to say about this. And as soon as I started talking, the entire room pulled out their notebooks and started taking notes. And he goes, I feel like you're the one giving the lecture now. And it made me laugh, because half the time It'll be like day right before class, and I have people running up to me and they're like, "Can you try and explain this to me really quickly? I'm so confused." And that used to be me going to other people for it. So it's kind of nice to be in that position of getting to give back what my classmates have done for me so much in high school, and calling them and saying, "Hey, can you explain this to me?" And I've had people call me already at midnight saying, "Can you please explain this to me?" And I'm like, it's nice seeing it reversed, because it's helping me as someone who wants to be a teacher learn how to best read people and how they need stuff explained too. But just knowing that I was in their position too, and knowing that in turn I can say, well, what are your thoughts on this? Because this kind of confused me, or do you think, would you understand it if I made this correlation or something? And getting to have these conversations has been so thrilling, essentially. Like it's just been rewarding getting to see the hard work I put in high school, getting to continue that in college, but also getting to grow that and grow kind of into what some of the peers that I looked up most to, kind of getting to kind of try on their shoes for a little bit. I'm sure once we get out of the stuff that I read before, it won't be the case, but I'm just really enjoying learning right now.
Well, those are great comments. And I have a comment, and then I've got a question for you. But as you're making those comments, Eva, I'm just thinking about the fact that there's some really smart people in the world. We both know that. And very seldom are you going to find yourself in the room where you know, hey, I am the smartest person in the room. There's generally always somebody that has more experience, is smarter in terms of their intellect, whatever it is. And so I think we do tend to undersell ourselves, so to speak, and we get intimidated. And you did go through that phase in high school because you had some really, really smart classmates, but that doesn't negate how smart you are. And you have found out you are very intelligent. You do bring a lot to the table. You do bring a lot to the conversation. And I think that's a great life experience, Eva, because that's the way it's going to be from here on out for the remainder of your life. You're going to walk in the room and there's going to be different gifts, set, skills, talents, abilities, and you're going to go, oh, they're really smart in that area. He's really smart in that area, but it doesn't take away from the things that you bring to the table. So I'm excited for you that you've discovered that in this first semester of college. Now, the question, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's what I learned during high school, was that not every person is the smartest person, but they may be the smartest in that subject. And so through my classmates, I learned we're all really good at something. And when you put all of that together, you get a room full of really smart people. But individually, yeah, we're great in those areas, but there's other areas we're not. And so when we all work together, we did a lot better. And so that's kind of what I'm finding now too, is the perspectives people are bringing to the table. A lot of my comments aren't original comments. They're coming from an observation I made during what somebody else is saying. And I'm saying, about that, remember back when this happened, or remember when we saw this happen, kind of thing. And so I don't think that I would be as confident as I was if I wasn't in a room of people also learning and loving learning at the same time. If it was just me having a conversation with my professor, I think that would be so intimidating. But because I'm in a room with all of my classmates and we're just challenging each other and growing together, we're all really good at something. And so we're continuing to work together and we bring unique experiences to the table. And I think that's a great way to approach life in general. And this whole purpose of bridging the gap is realizing you don't want to be the only smartest person in the room, because then you're surrounded by idiots. You may want to be the smartest in the room in a subject. And part of that also means you can listen to what other people have to say so that you can also learn about other things, or you can develop your own toolkit of metaphors and analogies and explanations of how to talk to other people. And so that's something that I'm learning too, is we learned about how metaphors are like a toolkit to prepare you to speak. You've got the teacher's metaphors of coming from someone experienced to someone less experienced, but then you've got students' metaphors of two people who don't understand it fully trying to make sense of it by using metaphors to simplify it. And that's something that I'm just learning a lot too, is when I have a conversation with my professor about something, it's half the time me going, oh, wow, I didn't know that. But then when I'm having a conversation with my classmates, it's them going, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or vice versa. And so it's the same kind of situation, but there's just a different level. Like, we're in different places. If our professor's up here and we're down here, we can go back and forth with those. Whereas when he's up here, he knows more than we do. And so you take those metaphors a lot more literally than you do when you're on the same level. And so that's something that I think was really great. He had us read this piece before class started, all about that, about how teachers, they may not have it right, but they do know how to teach it, and how students are going to use those metaphors, and the art of being able to say, I don't know if I'm going to describe this perfectly. However, this is how I see it. And that operative word being how I see it means that somebody else may not see it the same way, but you're trying to explain the way you're interpreting it, in a way to engage in conversation. And so that's something that I think is the most valuable thing I've learned being in a physical classroom over a Zoom classroom, is we're all engaging with each other and can see each other's facial expressions more than just raising hands and waiting patiently on a Zoom.
Yeah, that's so good. I want to continue talking about your experience this first few months in college, but the new thing in my life is that I am preparing to publish my first book in a month, and so that has consumed a lot of my mental energy and a lot of my extra time. But to the point that you're making, I had a editor that's a 28-year-old female. And so the generation to generation topic and the way that we communicate, I even found out in dealing with her, you have an older male author, you have a younger female editor. And when she first started making comments, I really didn't like it because I felt like she was trying to change my book and the tone of it too much. But I had to come to the conclusion. I'm like, hey, you're an author. You do know how to write, but she's a professional wordsmith. Why don't you listen to what she's saying and evaluate it in a rational, logical standpoint without getting emotional and defensive about it, and just look at her comment, take it for what it is, and does it make the book better? And in a lot of cases, I felt like, you know what? I wound up, by the time we got through, I really enjoyed her style and her comments because, to your point, she brought a strength in being a professional wordsmith into the room. And it was an enjoyable experience when you're working together as a team. So, anyway, kind of cool.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I have not read your book yet. I'm waiting for it to go in print, I think. I want to be able to write in it, and because I've learned, hey guys, it's okay to write in a book. And so annotating has become my best friend. And so I just want to be able to write in it and ask you questions and point to the pages and being able to say, why did I never know this story? Kind of things. And I'm excited getting to watch you do this. It's really cool because I feel like sometimes kids idolize their parents in a place of stasis almost, like where we forget that y'all are growing and changing and experiencing new things every day too. So getting to watch you do this new thing after hearing you talk about this book for years, hearing you get to talk about your testimony for years, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like kids can often forget that their parents are human too. And they're not either these perfect figures or robots or things like that. And so getting to watch you go through this and having to get the edits back and just your commentary on it, it's just reminded me you are human, but you have this most incredible story. And when I tell people about it, they'll just go, you've got the coolest parents. And I'm like, I know, right? Like I used to not know how to respond to that, but like getting to watch this process, I'm like, y'all haven't become stagnant in life. Y'all are both constantly changing and trying new things and doing new things. And so it's easy to get mystified by just, they go to work, they come home. I know so many kids who have no idea what their parents do for a living. And I'm like, it blows my mind because I'm like, what do you mean? You just see your parent as a figure who goes from 9 to 5 and comes home. Like it's been very interesting. It's been so cool getting to watch that and just be reminded of it too, of like, also for myself as I get older and things like that, there's not an age where you stop being capable of doing something. There's not an age where you're no longer able to do something new. You don't have to become a best-selling author at 22 to be consider yourself an author. I mean, you're 65 and I think you have an incredible story on your hands and you've got dreams for more books and more things like that. And that doesn't mean like the age doesn't limit you there. And so I feel like it's a scary part of growing up is, well, what if I run out of time? And I think that's something I've been dealing with a lot recently is just the idea of time and planning my life and constantly being asked, well, what do you want to do in the future? I was interviewing for something recently, like, what is your 5-year plan? Kind of things like that. And I was like, the thought of time scares me because as we've seen in the media recently, not everybody's guaranteed a lot of. And so it's how can you make the most of the time you've been given because you don't know it. My professor said it greatly. It was kind of morbid. He's a little spunky. In the first 5 minutes of class, he mentioned death, and he had said, death is like a shadow always following you, and sometimes you brush it, but you don't know where it is, but you know it's there. And it's the only release from this temporary prison we're on into eternity. And I think that was just a bittersweet way to realize what's going on in the world too is, yeah, it is awful for those people who didn't have the promise of eternity, but we don't know how much time we have. And so the idea of making the most of it, and there's 24 hours in a day, there's 60 hours or 60 minutes in an hour, there's is it 3,600 seconds in an hour? When you break it down like that, you realize you have a lot of time. If you just take everything hour by hour, day by day, you realize how much time there is and how much you're capable of. And so like recently, I've kind of become almost convicted about my doom scrolling too. Is like, how much time am I wasting doing nothing? What can I be doing? Who can I be spending time with? What homework can I be getting ahead on? Things like that. And so I think watching you do this too has also made me value time more. Is you're using this now, because the problem is there's a lot of your story I don't know. And writing it down and putting it on paper, and I think that's the beauty of the podcast, is you're immortalizing those words, those wisdoms, those stories, if not for me, but if for everybody else, because who knows who out there needs to hear that. And I think that the world often tries to silence us by telling us our words aren't important, or that the 1%, the less than 1% are the only ones who make it, kind of things. But you never know if you don't try. And so I think for me, it's been so gratifying watching you do this, because it's helped me understand time, to understand how powerful words are, how powerful stories are, and getting to read through the Iliad, which is the first work of the Western intellect and tradition. And if you don't know anything about this, it's the story of pretty much the Trojan War. It's where we get the term the Achilles heel kind of things. But it used to be orally told. And they were concerned when there had been some progression in like the literacy of people and things like that, that people were going to lose these stories, and they started to write them down. And so they've lasted. They're it's like this Greek, it's really like a trilogy of works. It's not all written by the same person, but it's a trilogy of works that tell the story of the Trojan War and everything. These are some of the only surviving pieces of Greek literature we have from these oral traditions and things like that. And so the fact that they were written down, these are stories that were written down, and getting to watch you write down these stories that I've only ever heard, I'm like, who knows how long this will outlive us? Who knows how long these legacies that we've talked about, this legacy that will outlive us, or how long it'll outlive our place in, like, our time in a place. Like, what can I do to make a difference here on campus? I'm only here for 4 years, but who can I be nice to? Who can I pray over? Who can I build a connection with that will outlive my time here? It doesn't necessarily have to mean, my passing. It could just be my time in a place. And so I've become more intentional, I think, watching you do this. And so it's been so gratifying.
Well, again, those are some great comments. And you've kind of hit on something that I would like to talk about for a few minutes. The story aspect. You getting to watch me tell the story and write the book. And this concept of time, I haven't talked to you about this in much detail, but you know the story. My grandparents, my mother died when I was extremely young. Well, not only did they die when I was young, they were young. My grandfather was 50 when he died. He was only 50 years old. My mother was only 33 when she died. My grandfather had one brother, and that brother died when he was 32. So there was this, I was surrounded by, immediate relatives that not only died, they died young. And so when I was a teenager, I was always kind of thinking about that. I thought, wow, mom died when she was 33. Is there something genetic about that? Is there something inherited about that? Am I going to die when I'm in my 30s? Grant, you get where I'm going with that. You kind of think through that. But the Bible says our days are numbered. God has assigned those. Only He knows. And what we can do, which is to the bigger point of what you're talking about, Eva, we can steward those days well. Each one of us is assigned a certain number of days, and the best we can do with those is to steward them well. And that brings me to, and that's what the book's about for me. Paul, your grandfather, taught me all these great lessons. And as I've continued to think about them through the years, I'm like, you have to learn how to steward those well. And the only way I knew to do that was to put them in book form. But here's the really cool thing, on my timeline, I'm about 20 years late, because as you know, I wrote a draft of the book 20 years ago. Well, why, you would think, well, why didn't you get it out 20 years ago? I didn't have the understanding that I have now. And so 20 years later, I clearly understand how all the lessons fit together. I've continued to evaluate the lessons. And so instead of having individual lessons, you're going to see in the book, every single lesson is a standalone lesson, but it also builds on the previous lesson. And the only way I could figure that out was to have lived the past 20 years and gone through that experience. And
You needed to
so
complete
I
the life
truly,
lessons.
I'm sorry.
There was a lot you needed to complete before you could write it, like in
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
And along with that, I have now learned what I call steward your story well. And there's a part in the book I write about that. You can have a great story. I've got a great story. The parachute accident. When people find out I had a parachute accident, the parachute didn't open, broke, all these bones, put me in the hospital for 45 days. It was a year-long recovery. They're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Well, it's an amazing story, but it really doesn't matter unless I can take that story and help someone else with it. Every story in the Bible, that's not in there for them. God put that in there for us, and He clearly says that. I give you these things as an example. So, anyway, the key topic out of that discussion is, hey, we've got to learn to steward everything well. We need to steward our days well, our time well, our story well, our resources well, our money, our finances, our relationships, everything that we've been given, we have to learn to steward it well. And here's one more thought. The opposite of that, the King James Version says squander. When the young son in Luke 15 went off and he asked for his half of the wealth, some versions say he spent his wealth. Some people say he wasted his wealth, or some versions say he wasted it in riotous living. Well, the King James Version says he squandered it. When I saw that word squandered, it's a harsh sounding word. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we really only have two choices in life with everything we're given. And it's Luke 15, the prodigal son. We can steward these things well, or we squander them. That's it. We have a daily choice: steward it or squander it, waste it. I don't want to waste anything.
Yep. You don't. And so, because of that, because of the lessons you've learned during this process, what has been the hardest part of writing your story, and what was the easiest?
The hardest part was trying to figure out how to put a bow on it. Because again, I wrote some great stuff 20 years ago, but I didn't know how to put a bow on it. And what do I mean by that? I didn't know how to wrap it up. When pastors are taught, and not just pastors, speakers, if you put it in terms of an airplane flight, you have to take off, you have to fly the pattern, give the message, and then you have to land the plane. Well, sometimes people have problems landing the plane. They've given this great talk or given this great speech or written this great book, but you got to land the plane. You got to tie a bow on it and say, hey, what's the point of all this? And I struggled with that. And it wasn't until I went through this 2-year process of, hey, what does your story really mean to other people? Not just you. That's where I came up with the idea of free fall. I had a free fall without a parachute. Well, what about other people? They've had a free fall too. Maybe they didn't have a parachute not open, but they've had a free fall. They've had a bankruptcy, a divorce. They've lost a loved one. They've had somebody betray their confidence. Every single person can relate to this ideal of falling through the air, spinning out of control. And when I learned, take your story of a parachute accident, but then ask people, hey, what's your free fall in life? What are you still struggling with? What have you not regained your balance from? That's how you tell a story, and that's how you land the plane and tie a bow on it. That was the hardest thing for me.
Wow. And so, Yeah, I would get that. I feel like sometimes the hardest, like in papers for students, is finding either a way to start the paper or end the paper. You generally can get the body written. You know what you want to say, but how do you start off saying it and how do you do it justice, everything you've said? I know when I was writing my thesis, the hardest thing for me was finding a way to end it. Was how can I do what I'm trying to do it justice? And um, that's actually a topic we were talking a lot about in class today. It was the idea of justice. Um, and where that comes from. But so having learned that, what has been the easiest part?
I'd love to tell you there was an easy part, Eva. I don't know that there was an easy
What was the
part.
least hard part?
Re the question in another way.
Okay.
The easiest part maybe was to trust the people that I hired to help me. I hired a book coach and I had to trust him that he knew about the process of developing and writing a book that I didn't know. He's written 9 of them. And so the easy part for me was to trust him and to basically take his advice and put it into practice. Even the editor, I talked about her. At first, I was a little irritated with her because I thought she was tearing my book apart. And I'm like, hey, I'm the author. I'm telling the story. But again, she's a professional wordsmith. And once she earned my trust, I was like, you know what? She's helping me make a better product. And so I think the short answer is the easiest thing was to trust the people that had the professional expertise to help me go where I wanted to go.
I think that I think that is something we've all struggled with is learning to trust people. And so when you know that you found the right people, it's easy to I think the more you trust someone, the easier it is to be able to say, I don't know how to do this, or what do you think is the best idea? And surrendering that control. What you said exactly about that author was you had to surrender the control of I'm the author to actually how can you help me make this better? And like we've been talking about, everybody's good at something. And that's what she's good at. That's what he's good at. And when you all work together, you create something great. But if you try to do it on your own, you did try to do it on your own. You did try to do it on your own and you couldn't put a bow on it. But now that you've worked with people, you found people who were the best at what they could do, you've created something great.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you to read it. I'm excited for my friends and family to read it. We're doing a big social media.
You kind of held it close to your chest. And so
Well, there's a process in that. It's called a drip campaign. You just kind of start dripping on social media just a little bit.
I
Monday,
just mean for me and Mama.
Wednesday, Friday. I'm sorry.
So I just mean even for me and Mama. You really didn't tell us anything about it until you got done with the final manuscript.
Well, I wanted to get it done. And, again, I'm excited to share it. It's going to be awesome. So let's wrap this episode up. That's a great discussion. But let me ask you a question back to your college experience. What has been, and this is fun for me, Eva, because I get to watch you go through something that I went through years ago. And so, my experience on a college campus is dated, but I had a very, very good experience at college. I still stay in touch with a lot of those guys that I was in a fraternity with. We go to a golf tournament once a year. We hang out together. We call each other. It was just a really good experience that generated lifelong friends. And I get it. Everybody doesn't have that experience, but that time is dated. And so I've tried to remember that as I've watched you on campus and go through this kind of integration and assimilation period. What is the biggest surprise that you've had in these first, month and a half at a college campus?
Well, that's a good question. Personally, for me, I went into this not worried about anything. I've been saying all year that I probably should. There's a lot of things that I probably should have been more nervous for, but I'm not. I was not nervous moving out. I was not nervous. I was not nervous starting classes. I was not nervous turning in my first assignment. I was very worried about friends. And it doesn't come from a place of, can I make them? It's, can I make good ones? Because I haven't had a track record of choosing the best people to be my friends. I've kind of can point out multiple places in my life I've made friends that have led me farther from my goals, farther from Christ than ones that have brought me closer. So I was really worried that I would put myself in the wrong crowd in an attempt to be cool or in an attempt of that's just what we had common interest in. And I will say it now, most of the people that I am friends with now, we don't have a lot in common, but we hang out all the time. Anytime you see them in the caf, you eat lunch. It's like, it helps that we went on a retreat for the fellows beforehand, but most of the people I hang out with on a regular basis aren't fellows. And so I think that was the most surprising thing for me, was who I ended up friends with. And I think that'll change some too as just the year develops, as I get more into my major, things like that. I think that, oh, and I should tell the story of getting towed on my first night. That was very surprising. First night.
Tell them who the fellows are.
The fellows is the honors college program. There's 35 of us. We applied, we interviewed, we have classes together. It's wonderful. Essentially, we're in the same kind of program as our fellow freshmen. However, instead of reading portions of text, we read the entire texts, and we have longer class periods to discuss them. There's more expectations on us, but the benefit is we get to go to Italy. So it's a nice trade-off. Oh, that dropped something. It's a nice trade-off, but I think I should tell a story about getting towed, because I'm sure some people have seen the photo, because it was wonderful. It was a great story. First night, okay? Classes haven't even started yet, guys. They had left me at college not even 6 hours ago, and I'm going to this dinner for the fellows, and part of the dinner is the scavenger hunt, and nothing in the rules says we can't use our cars. And I said, guys, the higher point stuff is farther away. My car's right here. I got my keys on me. Let's get my car. We can hit the farther stuff, rack up more points, okay? We did that. It was great. People were the other teams, they were like, I can't believe you did that. You're cheaters and everything. And I was like, the rules never said it. This is a situation where I would rather ask for forgiveness than permission, because I don't want them to make a rule on the spot because of it. And so one of the rules was film a TikTok, or challenges was film a TikTok in front of Greek housing. So we do that. It's wonderful. It's great. And then I'm turning around in one of the house's parking lots. And what I don't know is that every single person who parks in this parking lot backs straight out of it. So I'm trying to make a 7-point turn, half on their sidewalk, because what I can't see is how steep of a drop it is from their sidewalk to their grass. And I'm on the corner of it. I think I'm fine. I think if I roll back, I'll roll back on the grass, because the grass is tall. So you can't see how deep it is. My car isn't beeping at me. Well, I let off my brakes to let on my, to turn my wheel and let on my gas. And it's a gravel parking lot. And so when I let off my brakes and turn my wheels, my car shifts backwards and I just slide down the hill, and there's no space between my car and the concrete. And I had to get towed first night, sitting on the steps of this frat house until 11:30. I just called them and I said, hi, I said, my car's stuck. I have to call a tow truck. And they said, oh, okay. Well, you good? You safe? Is your car fine? I was like, I think it's fine. And I said, well, if it's more than this, we'll cover it. But I said, I think I should be able to cover it just fine. I paid for it, got my car. It was fine. Y'all were so chill about it. And I'm sure y'all were sitting there thinking, what have we just done? We just dropped this kid off at college and she's already getting towed. The police had been called. We had to call the campus police because we had to make sure not even know what we could do. Anyway, it was a wonderful first night. It was very memorable. This was after my professor giving me a hard time for liking Formula One. He said, we don't need any Formula One drivers over here. And then I crashed. Not really. I didn't crash. I slid off the back of the hill. My car was fine. I drove it 2 hours the next day to go to camp. It was fine.
Yeah.
Nobody holds it against me. It literally, here, I'll pull up the photo. Literally.
Again, to make it easy, the drop off was so big and unexpected, your car got caught on the curb. Yep. Yeah.
And so this is the photo. I have it, guys, right here. It's such a memorable photo. I do think this will scar me for the rest of my life. I will post this on our stories of the Instagram so you can see it. But this was my car, night one, right here.
Yep. Totally stuck on the curb.
You can just see where it slid back, and then I had turned my wheel because I tried to go forward. I was like, oh, it's fine. But the problem is I have forward wheel drive, not back wheel drive. So I couldn't get any traction with my back wheels to get up over the hill. And so I had called my friend who was a mechanic, and I was like, how bad would this be? He goes, well, your transmission plate is plastic, and if you snap that, you kind of total your car. And I was like, oh, great. I won't try this anymore. And so called the tow truck, but it was a memorable first night. There's been nothing else too memorable other than just hanging out with friends.
But The moral of that story is you were a little, I guess, I don't want to
Stressed.
say, huh?
Stressed.
Yeah, stressed. I'm looking for the right word. You were, is trepidatious. I guess is that the right word?
It made me shaky. I was.
Is that a word? I need to ask Siri. Siri. Hey, Siri, is trepidatious a word?
Yes, trepidation is a word. It refers to a feeling of fear or unease about something that may happen. This is from thickintentauthority.com.
Okay.
Thanks.
My vocabulary is better than you think. But you had a little trepidation about calling. But the moral of the story is we've told you over and over and over there is nothing so bad that you can't call us, and we're not going to be mom and dad.
Yep. And it was literally just you good? Y'all were so chill about it. I was fully expecting more upset parents. I think I was beating myself up over it more because I don't think after my car was like back in the parking garage, we ever talked about it again other than when I brought it up. So I think it has scarred me more, but it was really funny. My professors know about it now. That was really funny. They didn't know it had happened. And so, I mean, we placed like third in like scavenger hunt despite not getting it done. And so, well, made some good friends because of it.
The moral of that story also is don't manufacture outcomes, because a lot of times we tend to manufacture these mental outcomes that we think are really going to be bad. And 90% of the time, it never plays out that way. And it's not near as bad as we think it's going to be. So, anyway, good job.
That's the moral of the story. That's the fun fact about Eva at college. But it's been great. It's been so good to get to talk to you and to get back into this routine. So it's just been an exciting time for us, scary time for us. There's a lot going on is all I can say. And so it's good to remember we are always able to talk.
Exactly. Regardless of what happens, let's always be able to talk from
generation to generation. Goodness, that's so hard to do on two separate mics now. But we love y'all. If y'all have any ideas that you want us to talk about, let us know. Our Instagram, our Facebooks are all available, as well as our website. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and obviously Facebook and Instagram. But it's been good. We'll get back into the swing of things eventually. But just thank you for having grace for all of us. So, bye.